locals in Madang raise concerns on environmental waste. Boycott of classes at Lane's Polytechnic Institute continues. And Electoral Commissioner announces dates for by-election.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
Good evening and thanks for joining me for Wednesday's news. People living near the impact areas of Madang's Pacific Marine Industry Zone have called on the government to give them opportunities to sustain a living if they are going to build 10 proposed canneries. For 15 years, the PMIZ issue has drawn criticism from local factions who say their environment is in danger from the waste that will be coming from the 10 canneries. A faction of Madang's Kananam people are demanding the government for opportunities before they exploit their resources. EMTV's Bethany Harriman with this report from Madang.
While the Papua New Guinea government pushes for the PMIZ project to begin, the environmental issues remains a concern for locals. Trade, Industry and Commerce Minister Richard Maru has been putting pressure on integrated landowner groups to be established so that the project can begin. The rush has also caused confusion within the local community. Lucy Bear is part of the Sek clan that owns much of the land that the proposed canneries will be built on. They've learned tough lessons from the RD cannery that operates on their land and pumps wastes into the ocean. Locals say they have seen change in their traditional fishing areas. These pictures show Lucy Bear and members of the Sek clan from Kananam staging a canoe protest, trying to draw the government's attention to their plight. Felix Arkfeld says the people will need an alternative source of income when they can't fish in the sea to sell for an income. He says their children will need to be given opportunities for spin-off businesses and education. The issue of the PMIZ first began when the idea was tabled by the Somali-led government. The initial project was deemed not feasible, but China's Exim Bank helped funded 10 proposed canneries that will make up the marine park on the north coast of Madang.
None of the industry players really want to get an environmental picture of this because they would have to pay for the environmental costs that it would be.
Nancy Sullivan is an anthropologist who has been following the PMIZ saga for the last 10 years.
And you take a big chunk of the north coast and you basically kill rural coastal fisheries. No matter what they say, that you'll still be, like a whole swathe of Madang fishing will go. And we know that.
She explains the reality behind a project that will directly affect the 4 villages of people socially and economically. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News.
Students at Lane's Polytechnic Institute have continued their boycott of classes after the administration failed to convince them to resume classes today. The administration made a commitment of 300,000 kina towards fixing the rundown facilities when responding to their petition presented on Monday. But student leaders said they won't go back to class until work is being carried out on their old buildings.
Today marks a week since the boycott at Lane's Polytechnic Institute began. On Monday this week, students mobilized and presented a petition to the administration. The petition contains demands to renovate the old buildings and build new ones. A committee was convened after the petition was presented, and over the last 48 hours, they have discussed ways to address the students' plight. This morning, they responded to the petition.
If it's not satisfying you, then just humble yourself.
What people come there and line him something. We're on a fix him up until 4 years or 5 years. Okay, people strike.
The committee, headed by the Institute Director, made a commitment of 300,000 kina to ease the boycott and allow students to resume classes while they allocate a contractor to do the maintenance work. But the response that came from the student body this morning was defiant.
Keep all like Gimla promises. We know that these things won't happen and we will still stand that no classes in Abimla will come up.
The administration had come under fire by the students over the last 3 months for not responding to queries they raised over their living and learning conditions. The Institute Director, Madang, says moves have already been taken to address the concerns raised in the petition.
I don't think they're not agreeing with the 300,000. They want some action to take place before they return to class. And those are some of the immediate actions that we are taking, as pointed out in the 6 points of petition.
The boycott is now dragged into its 5th day with no breakthrough made. The student body says they will maintain their stand. No change, no school. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Ley.
The move by Vanimo Green MP and former opposition leader Belden Nama to be elected as the new governor for Sundown Province has created controversy and raised questions on its legality. Mr. Nama's move is based on the vacant seat of the governor of Sundown left for the last 2 years. Despite the Supreme Court's ruling for a by-election for the governor's seat, the Sundown Provincial Assembly voted in favor of Nama to be elected as governor. However, acting governor Paul Nengai says Mr. Nama's move is illegal, claiming the MP should have waited for the by-election issued by the Supreme Court. MTV's Stanley Ovid Jr. has tonight's MTV News special report.
Deputy Governor for Sundown Province Paul Nengai claims the governor's seat was hijacked by Vanimo Green MP Belden Nama. Mr. Nengai, who was the chairman of the Sundown Provincial Assembly before Nama's election as governor, says there are processes Mr. Nama did not consider before being sworn in as governor.
In General Order said the chairman will announce whether there is a vacancy, obviously, at the assembly. Then the election can take place. I should have announced it. Even the assembly clerk, the purported assembly clerk did not announce it. So they just bulldozed the whole thing. They didn't announce it. There was no time given for the presidents to go out and decide whom to elect.
The move by Nama to take over as chairman of the Provincial Assembly and then as governor came about when Mr. Nengai was absent from the assembly meetings held last week, Monday and Tuesday. Nama claims Nengai fled after thinking he was to be arrested by Vanimo police for not attending the meetings.
There were uniformed policemen armed with arms. They came to pick me, and my principle was that I would not jump on a chopper and to be picked up by an armed policeman in uniform.
Me blasting PPC. You know, go kidnap him. You know, go kidnap him. You go find him, ask him, good la passing. No, calm down. No, only Muslim meeting.
2 years ago, former Governor Amkat Mai was summoned to court by former governors Simon Solo and John Tekwe, alleging the governor had used underage voters in the 2012 general elections. The Supreme Court ruled a by-election for Sundown Province and declared a vacancy for the West Sepik provincial seat. Mr. Nama says Sundown Province has waited too long for a leader at the provincial level, and the vacant seat had to be taken by a member of parliament.
Now I think I'm prepared for a bigger responsibility. And bigger responsibility is the governor of the province, which is a stepping stone to much bigger responsibility.
This afternoon, the Electoral Commission declared the by-election for West Sepik, and polling will start on the 11th of July. Electoral Commissioner Andrew Trowen says the move by Nama to be elected by the Provincial Assembly will be clarified by the Minister for Intergovernment Relations and Deputy Prime Minister Leo Dion.
I'm not in a position to give you any information because I'm not aware of any. I've read on the news, but I think it's let's leave it to the Deputy Prime Minister, who is the Minister.
Meanwhile, Paul Nengai believes Nama should have waited for the 2017 elections.
He's been referred by the Ombudsman Commission to the public prosecutor. So why cannot he wait until he's cleared? Thirdly, the Electoral Commission will soon, next week they will announce a date of the issue of writs. So why he cannot wait? Or if he wants to, he can go nominate and go to the election and come back as a governor.
For now, Mr. Nama says Sandown Province needs a leader to put the province on a development path. The MP says all open members and LLG presidents must put aside their differences for the greater interest of the province. And Vanimo town, being the provincial capital and the gateway to Indonesia, is seeing little development.
My focus is Sandown Province. The dream I have for Papua New Guinea, I will do my best to have a small dream. I had a bigger dream for PNG, but I will have a small dream for Sandown people, for Sandown Province.
Stanley Ovett Jr., National EMTV News.
The oil search baton journey continues after the break, and the relay team's next stop, Bilas Peles Kavieng. I'll bring you that story and more coming up after the break. Stay with us. Good to have you back with National EMTV News. The welcome reception for the oil search baton relay at the London Ovid Airport in Kavieng was nothing short of spectacular, with performances from traditional dancers. Before moving to New Ireland Province, the team visited schools in Manus. MTV's Lorraine Genia has all the highlights.
A few hours before the baton was to leave Manus, they made a quick stop to primary and high schools, much to the delight of the children, and a fast one at Lorengau Police Station. Then it was on the road to the airport to the next destination, Kavieng, in the New Ireland Province. As the baton relay team touched down, traditional dancers awaited and performed a welcoming ceremony. The baton was then passed on to the governor, Sir Julius Chan, who took it through the airport to the crowd waiting outside. The relay had begun, and the team would spend the next 4 hours travelling around Kavieng town and the surrounding villages. The start of the day's journey took it past many schools in Kavieng. Runners were surrounded by students in traditional dress and the various colours of their school uniform. Headmasters, teachers and students all got a chance to touch and walk with the baton. The baton stopped at a coastal village to pay homage to the oldest living person in the region before it would make its way onto the beaches of Kavieng. It continued on its journey to the awaiting crowds in town. The real-life tourer even made an appearance and stood step-fast upon the baton. Students lined the Anzac Memorial Park for the next exchange. It made its way down the coastal road and everyone got to touch the baton. Even the local AFL players got their turn. A quick walk through the national fisheries and to the children's hospital, then to the awaiting boats where it would be carried in true New Ireland fashion along the coast. Lorraine Genia, National EMTV News.
Key government agencies in the energy sector are in discussions to identify best practices for the regulation of oil and gas developments in Papua New Guinea. The dialogue is being facilitated by the United States Embassy here in Port Moresby. It's expected that those involved in the development of the oil and gas sector work together to implement PNG's policies and laws and discuss ways to improve communication and coordination amongst themselves.
Today, the U.S. Embassy started its 3-day workshop titled Identifying Best Practices for the Regulation of Oil and Gas Development in Papua New Guinea. It was attended by over 30 officials from key agencies, including the National Petroleum Company, the Departments of Petroleum and Energy, Finance, Treasury, National Planning, Lands and Physical Planning, and Justice and Attorney General.
You too have a very important role to play. You all are the stewards of the finances of Papua New Guinea and the stewards of the money that flows into the government. You help regulate sectors that bring in a significant amount of revenue, and you all allow that kind of growth and opportunity to take place.
This workshop is the latest in a series of exchanges led by the U.S. Department of Interior's Bureau of Land Management since 2012 as part of the Energy Governance and Capacity Initiative. The objective is to help PNG manage its oil and gas sector revenues wisely so that it maximizes and sustains natural resource development. Finance Minister James Marape said that as an oil and gas producing country, the topics of best practice, sustainable development and traditional landowners' benefits were of interest to the government.
As you know, these are resources that is not replaceable. These are resources once extracted is forever gone. And so we must continue to improve and increase the value of what we take today, and whilst developing our country today, have an element of sustainability that goes beyond our generations and into the future.
Participants are eager to learn from the workshop the role of each agency in the sector, inclusive economic growth, the best legal frameworks, training and capacity building, engaging traditional landowners, and converting the energy into tangible benefits, amongst others. At last year's workshop, one of the main challenges identified was the interaction between the various agencies within the energy sector. This 3-day workshop hopes to address some of these specific challenges. Delhi Waigeno, National EMTV News.
Well, today marks 1 year since the PNG LNG project started production of liquefied natural gas. Operated by ExxonMobil PNG Limited, the project is the country's first LNG project, which has been operating since April 29, 2014. To date, the project has produced over 6 million tons of LNG and delivered 87 cargoes. ExxonMobil PNG Managing Director Andrew Barry said their first year of full production has been truly remarkable. Agriculture Minister Tommy Tomskol has called on all rice distributors to start planting and producing rice in the country. Minister Tomskol made this call today during the Trukai Field Trip Day at the Arab Agriculture Station outside of Lae City. He says the government is working on a policy to revoke licenses for import rice distributors who don't comply.
The production of rice in Papua New Guinea is expected to double in the next 3 years as the government makes a policy for major rice distributors to venture into planting rice. Agriculture Minister Tommy Tomskol says the national government wants to see local people involved in managing hectares of rice farms in the country. Once the government passes the policy, imported rice distributors in Papua New Guinea must grow and produce their rice onshore, or the government will have their trading licenses revoked.
Papua New Guinea today, we have many companies that are in the country importing rice. My message to you all is very clear. If you are not investing at the farm level, there will be no place for you next year. You have to pack up and you have to leave.
This move comes after the government's ban on imported chicken from overseas. The poultry ban now allows local production to increase, expecting a rise in income for local people. The rice production policy is a step forward by the government to promote food security in the country.
Let me assure you, the policy will not change. Let us talk about partnership.
The Trukai Rice and Agricultural Development Field Day today displayed Trukai's production strength from paddy to plate. The Agriculture Minister congratulated Trukai on behalf of the government in involving local communities in the production of rice in Papua New Guinea. Sylvester Gawi, National EMTV News, Lae.
An investigation into fraudulent land claims along the Highlands Highway by a private contractor has saved the state millions of kina. In 2014, subcontractor James Mara found over 1.5 million kina worth of land claims were fraudulent. He is part of a verification team set by the Works Department to verify genuine landowners along the Lagaim-Pogera section of the Highlands Highway. 10 kilometers of the 64-kilometer road from Lagaim to Pogera is yet to be verified.
With assistance from the Joint Security Forces, the verification team led by James Mara were able to conduct the identification process. The verification team set up by the Asian Development Bank through the Department of Works in Wabeg have been surveying the 64-kilometer section of the Lagaim-Pogera Road. The purpose of the verification process is to identify genuine landowners residing along the corridors of the Highlands Highway. While some areas are under tribal conflicts, the team has managed to proceed with the support from the Joint Security Forces.
We will only verify the 10 kilometer, only the ones affected already, because the road is wide enough. We can't get the new ones in. Only the affected people, the structures moved already by the construction, will be verified and then add on to the list from kilometer 54. And then when there's money available, we will we will try and pay the affected people.
The team had to literally walk along the highway to identify property structures and cash crops. It wasn't an easy task, as the team discovered that for every 10 kilometers, there were arguments among the people as to who was the genuine landowner. From the 64-kilometer stretch of the Laigam-Porgera Road, 5 million kina was paid to the people from the start of the highway to kilometer 54. The remaining 10 kilometers is currently being verified. Inspector Jeffrey Lamb, attached to the SOE call-out operation in Porgera, has warned those attempting to defraud the state to refrain, as they will not hesitate to arrest and charge them accordingly. Bridget Komateb, National EMTV News.
Electoral Commissioner Andrew Trowen today announced the by-election dates for West Sepik Province and Goilala Open Seat. The elections will run concurrently, beginning on the 14th of May this year. A partial funding was released by the Treasury Department to start the elections. MTV's Vasinatayama reports.
The by-elections for the vacant West Sepik Provincial and Goilala Open Seat have been confirmed by the Governor-General, Sir Michael Ogio. Both elections will start on the same date. The issuing of writs will be on Thursday, 14th of May 2015 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Nomination will go on for a week and close on the 20th of May at 4 p.m. Polling will begin on the 11th of July and run for 2 weeks and close on the 24th of July. The counting itself will begin straight after polling ends and will go on for 3 weeks. The returning of writs will be on or before Thursday, 13th of August.
This afternoon, I want to announce to the people of West Sepik Province and the people of the Goilala District in the Central Province that the by-election dates for the vacant West Sepik Provincial seat and the Goilala Open Electorate seat have been confirmed.
The by-elections were spurred due to the death of Goilala MP, late Daniel Mona, and the election petition to former West Sepik Governor Amkat Mai for using underage kids to vote in the last 2012 election. Now that the by-election dates are confirmed, the Electoral Commissioner will move forward in planning the conduct of the two elections. Polling schedules will be put in place in the coming weeks, while the awareness teams will be dispatched to areas of West Sepik where allegations have been raised in the election petition to boost voter and civic awareness to avoid repetition. In preparation for the by-elections, Mr. Trowen has finalized the appointments of the returning officers and assistant returning officers for Goilala Open Seat and West Sepik Provincial.
The election manager for Central Province, Mr. Kila Egaba, has been confirmed to be appointed the returning officer for Goilala Open Electorate. Election manager for East Sepik, Mr. Kila Ralai, has also been confirmed to be appointed returning officer for West Sepik Provincial Electorate by-election.
On funding for both elections, the Treasury Department has released 2.5 million kina from the total 10 million kina for West Sepik Provincial and another 2.5 million of the total 4.6 million for Goilala Open.
Of 2.5 billion or 5 million in total, you can, imagine the situation or the problem facing the Treasury Department. The money is not coming because we need to pay these people. We need to print the ballot papers and so on, and the posters and so on. But I'm confident the money will come.
The Electoral Commissioner stated that he cannot guarantee the successful completion of the two by-elections if funding was released on a piecemeal basis. Meanwhile, 17 candidates are running for Pomio by-elections. Currently, polling officials are undergoing training, and the polling will begin on the 9th of May this year. Vasinatayama, National EMTV News.
More than 10,000 students from 587 schools in Southern Highlands have benefited from the provincial government's uniform rollout program. All primary, secondary, technical and vocational schools in the province have been covered this month. Remote schools in the province have had their uniforms airlifted to them.
School uniforms were airlifted to remote areas including Wapusale and Simberigi in the Kagua Herave district and Wiliame and Muluma in the Nipa Kutubu district of Southern Highlands.
Uniform comes up. I'm good by uniform or oversized or one, but still as long as I'm uniform, me feel him must. Bilasim all picking or some school picking. Bilasim teacher or some teacher. Me must.
These schools share borders with Baimuru and Kikori in Gulf Province, Karamui in Simbu Province, and Northern Fly in the Western Province. The program aims to clothe 50,000 elementary students, 4,600 high school students, 3,400 secondary school students, and 1,300 technical and vocational students in the province. Sports and recreation uniforms are also part of the program. Phase 2 of the program in 2016 will include all teaching staff of all schools in the province.
This is trial and error. 2016, I'm assuring you, all the people by you kiss uniform. Within next few weeks, we will advise all the teachers to come. Now, go back to the classroom. One teacher you by kiss size, and then come back. Make sure that all of the people in Southern Island province by kiss uniform. That's my assurance to you. It's a trial and error thing we are doing. Suppose one blood picking in, you know, kiss him. You know, can try and belata. Teacher, you take ownership. You talk in me blood. You come through headmaster to district education advisor. Talk sour some years. Beginning look grade 9, no kiss him.
Delivery was made to Gobe Agro Technical High School, one of the remote schools in Kagua Herave district. The rollout program is also for provincial education officials to assess the current state of infrastructures in schools for rehabilitation of rundown facilities. Michelle Amba, National EMTV News.
And now we take a look at the finance news. The Kina closed unchanged at $0.3715 in the interbank market, and at Bank South Pacific, our Kina was fetching $0.364, $0.460 Australian dollars, €0.3275 and 42.82 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee and cocoa closed the day higher, while copper closed lower. Palm oil and crude oil closed the day lower as well, while copper closed the day higher. And finally, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 73 points lower, the ASX closed at 100 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 93 points higher. Among stories coming up after the break, Australia recalls its ambassador to Indonesia and suspends ministerial contact as well, following the execution of 2 of its citizens for drug smuggling. I'll bring you that report plus many more coming up after the break. Thanks for your company and welcome back to National EMTV News. An additional suspect has been arrested over last week's Kundiawa robbery in Simbu Province. This brings the total number of arrests to 6. The suspects made off with 300,000 kina worth of cash and checks from a local shopping centre. Provincial Police Commander Chief Inspector Albert Belly told EMTV News that the 6 suspects are expected to be charged and will face Kundiawa District Court in the coming days. A probationary constable facing rape allegations in Port Moresby is now in police custody in Mount Hagen, Western Highlands. The officer, George Baker, was apprehended by Mount Hagen police in relation to the murder of another young woman this week. Baker had fled to Western Highlands after he was requested to turn himself to the Criminal Investigation Division here in Port Moresby. He will be airlifted back to Port Moresby to face disciplinary charges. Turning overseas now, 2 Australians, Andrew Chan and Myron Sukumaran, convicted of drug smuggling, were executed early this morning in Indonesia. The pair was put to death by a firing squad. The executions followed 10 years of lost court battles, desperate pleas, and a failed request to achieve the Indonesian president's clemency. The saga that began in April 2005 as the conviction of Andrew Chan and Myron Sukumaran for drug trafficking ended this morning with their executions. Just after midnight today, they were killed by a firing squad alongside 6 other death row inmates on Nusa Kambangan Island in central Java. Their executions have sparked tensions between Indonesia and Australia. This morning, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott said Australia will recall its ambassador to Indonesia in what he termed as cruel and unnecessary executions. Australia has not previously taken this step when a citizen has been executed by a foreign country, and it has never before withdrawn an ambassador to Indonesia. However, Indonesia's Attorney General, Muhammad Prasetyo, said Australia's reaction was instantaneous and could be resolved through diplomacy.
Execution is not exciting, it's not a pleasant job, but in order to save this nation from drugs, we should carry out the punishment. We did not do it against the states, we did it to combat drug crimes.
One prisoner was spared at the last minute. Philippines housemaid Mary Jane Veloso, who was arrested in 2010 with 2.6 kilos of heroin, was withdrawn from the group after a request from Manila. The Indonesian Attorney General's office said Veloso would be permitted to give evidence after a woman suspected of planting the drugs gave herself up to police in the Philippines yesterday.
There was an official request submitted to the President, and President responded to the request. We gave the Philippines government some time to reveal the truth of human trafficking crime. The Philippines government has asked Indonesia to postpone the execution of Mary Jane as she needs to testify for the case. Mary Jane was asked to give detailed information and testify. That's why we postponed it, as we respected the ongoing legal process in the Philippines.
Earlier this month, Amnesty International described the death penalty as a non-deterrent to crime and terrorism. Despite current tensions with Indonesia in light of Chan and Sukumaran's executions, Australia says it won't affect trade relations. The mass execution cements Indonesia's hard line on enforcing the death penalty, which has sparked international debate on the ethics of the exercise of the penalty itself.
The death penalty is not a deterrent to crime and terrorism. There is no evidence to support that contention. In fact, studies by the UN and studies done across different regions in the world show that the death penalty is no more of a deterrent than terms of imprisonment. So governments using that line, the death penalty as a deterrent, are deceiving the public.
Despite current tensions with Indonesia in light of Chan and Sukumaran's executions, Australia says it won't affect trade relations. The mass execution cements Indonesia's hard line on enforcing the death penalty, which has sparked international debate on the ethics of the exercise of the penalty itself. And in the United States, a state of emergency has been activated in Baltimore in the state of Maryland after violent riots left 15 police officers injured with multiple shops looted and burnt. The riots follow the funeral of African-American Freddie Gray, who died in police custody under circumstances that still remain unclear. What you see here is a frightening and massive inferno, and it's part of Baltimore's destruction. Aerial scenes capture protesters clashing with police, which resulted in multiple arrests and at least 15 officers injured, with 2 hospitalized. A CVS pharmacy that had been looted was on fire as police moved into an area where rioters sacked businesses and destroyed public and police vehicles. On the ground, tensions were so high, even filming proved to be life-threatening. The riots apparently have been fueled by Freddie Gray's death, an African-American who died on April 19 under uncertain circumstances while in police custody. Gray is the latest in a series of African-American men around the United States who have died under disputed conditions during police encounters. Their deaths have triggered an outcry in the United States over what many see as law enforcement's unjustified use of force against African Americans. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan initiated a state of emergency upon the request of the mayor of Baltimore.
I have declared a state of emergency at the request of Baltimore City. This order deploys the Maryland National Guard.
The deployment of the National Guard is a last resort to quell the Baltimore unrest. The city's mayor, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, promised to hold those responsible for the violence accountable.
We are deploying every resource possible to gain control of this situation and to ensure peace moving forward.
and a curfew has also been established.
There will be a citywide curfew, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. This preliminary curfew will last for 1 week and be extended as it is necessary.
Up to 5,000 law enforcement officials will be requested from the Mid-Atlantic region to help quell the violence in Baltimore. So far, over 200 people have been arrested. Loretta Lynch is the first African-American woman to be sworn in as the U.S. Attorney General. The new Attorney General's agenda includes the Baltimore riots. EMTV's Alana Lay has more on this report.
U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch was sworn in on Monday as the first African-American woman to take the country's top law enforcement post. Lynch's appointment comes at a critical time, as thousands took to the street at the weekend to protest the death of Freddie Gray, the latest victim of a series of deadly and questionable encounters between police and mostly African-American males. Following an outbreak of riots, Lynch issued a statement condemning the escalating violence and looting. "I condemn the senseless acts of violence by some individuals in Baltimore that have resulted in harm to law enforcement officers, destruction of property, and a shattering of the peace in the city of Baltimore. I will bring the full resources of the Department of Justice to bear in protecting those under threat, investigating wrongdoing, and securing an end to violence." Lynch is Harvard-educated and grew up in North Carolina during the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Her father, who was a Baptist preacher, would take her along to the courthouse to witness important cases.
If a little girl from North Carolina, we used to tell her grandfather in the fields to lift her up on the back of his mule so she could see way up high, Granddaddy, can grow up to become the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, we can do anything.
Alana Lay, MTV World News.
Well, National MTV News continues after the break with Trukai Sports, and I'll give you all the sporting action after these short messages. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The national boxing team left today for another training camp in the Philippines. The team left with national coach Joe Alpha and expert coach Alan Nicholson for their second phase of training. They will be training alongside boxers from the Philippines. MTV's Elijah Levet has this report.
The 11 boxers were geared for another training stint in Baguio City, Philippines. Expert coach Alan Nicholson said this will be one of the hardest trainings so far, as this will also be the high altitude training camp.
So the boys are going to feel it up there. There's a lot less oxygen in the air, and it's an ideal training situation for the team before they come back down to Moresby. So I see the team, if they can work very hard for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I can see them performing very, very well at the games.
The team will spend approximately 30 days there, training alongside boxers from the Philippines, and the PNG boxing team is looking forward to working closely with the boxers from the area.
With the Philippine team, this will hopefully bring the team right up as far as skills, technical and tactical abilities go, and I look forward to working with the Philippine team in Baguio City.
They are set for another training camp in Beijing, but may prolong their stay in the Philippines if their trip to Beijing is not a success.
I'm hopeful that the Beijing leg does go ahead, as it from the start has been part of my preparation for the team.
Elijah Levet, National MTV Sports.
All the best with their training camp in the Philippines. Trukai Sports continues with AFL plus cricket. That's coming up after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. In AFL, sports development programs have the potential to equip young talents with necessary skills to exceed in respective codes in the country. AFL PNG's development program, New Kick, supports both boys and girls to learn the basics of AFL. In 2014, minor centres jumped on board to participate in the National Regional Junior AFL Championships. And with the inclusion of women's AFL in the 6th PNG Games, that's an indication showing the growth of the sport in the country.
Hundreds of students from over 20 public schools flock to the Maribarks AFL Oval every Saturday to compete in the Port Moresby Junior AFL competition. The rollout of AFL PNG's development program, New Kick, has provided an avenue for children between the ages of 13 to 17 to play AFL, and has sparked an interest in the number of girls' participation in the sport. Although the under-17 girls squad, the Kurakums, and women's AFL representative team, the Flames, have not participated in any major tournaments overseas in the last 2 years, AFL PNG continues to promote equal participation in their programs. The staging of the annual National Regional Junior AFL Championships allows for minor centres to compete for a selection into AFL PNG's academy. The inclusion of women's AFL in the 6th PNG Games exhibits the growth of the code in the country. The program has the potential to grow the number of junior competitions around the country and build a pathway of amateur players to play in major leagues on and offshore. Scholar Sengi, National, EMTV Sports.
Cricket has set its sights on becoming the leading sport in the country. These ambitious targets were set out last night at Cricket PNG sponsors dinner. Corporate entities, including supporting the sport, were treated to the plans of the future, with members of International Cricket Council Regional Development Programme also present.
With big participation numbers and a good corporate backing, Cricket PNG is hoping to be the #1 sport of choice for girls, boys, men and women and families in Papua New Guinea. Pacific MMI Managing Director and Cricket PNG Deputy Chairman Wayne Dorgan expressed his ambitions for the sport.
When you consider that we're currently 15th in the world at an ODI level, if we had have beaten the Netherlands and Ireland, if I remember correctly, we would have been in the World Cup that's just been held. So that's something to remember going forward. I'll allow all the highlights.
Cricket PNG has a vision to reach all possible ICC World Cup events from 2014 onward, including the T20 World Cup in 2016.
We want our under-19s to play in the World Cup in 2016. We want our women's, who we think is a great show, to play in the World Cup in 2015. They go off to qualify in Thailand for that. We want men's and women's and ICC World Cup in the 2019. We want to play Test cricket in the next 10, 15, 20 years in this country.
Some of the major achievements by the national team have resulted in Papua New Guinea becoming the 23rd country to be given one-day international status and the first country to win 2 ODIs. Plans for the next 3 years up until 2017 include matches against the Netherlands, Afghanistan, Ireland, Namibia, the UAE, Scotland and Hong Kong.
Gone are the days where, Barmanis played only one game. Don't know, probably the rankings we had, probably the financial downfalls, but looking back and coming from now on, we've gone a long way. PNG Barmada or PNG cricket has gone a long way.
These tournaments will include the Intercontinental Cup and World Cricket League Championships, with other tournaments such as the Pacific Games and the Saka Premier League in 2016. The women's team, the Pacific MMI Lewas, will also be touring, with Samoa and Australia on the cards. Jeremy Moggy, National, EMTV Sports.
And that's a wrap-up of Trukai Sports tonight, but I'll be back with the weather details for tomorrow and tonight. Stay tuned for that.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
A quick look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours in southern region. Brief showers expected in Alatau and Port Moresby. In Momase, few showers for Madang, Vanimo and Wewak. In the New Guinea Islands, mostly fine in Kavieng and Buka. And lastly, in the Highlands region, brief showers then morning fog anticipated in all centres. A quick recap of our main stories before we go tonight. Locals in Madang raised concerns on environmental waste. Also, boycott of classes at Lay's Polytechnic Institute continues. and Electoral Commissioner announces dates for by-election. Well, that's how we end the bulletin this Wednesday. On behalf of the news crew, I'm Tokana Hasavi. As always, thanks heaps for your company. You take care and stay safe. Good night.